turning the page in fall camp. We've had a lot of things happen. The Bob Wager situation to start things off. Miles Farmer, Joshua Fleeks, two practices going on at separate moments or separate times for at least 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, living in the dorms. They've gone on every day this week. Saturday will be their final practice of the week before their first day off. One would assume there might be a scrimmage built in this week.
Yeah, it could be a Saturday scrimmage. I wonder if they're ready for a full-blown scrimmage. I would think they would be, because this is not 1995. This is 2023, where they practice in June and July. I mean, that's one thing that if you talk to coaches nowadays, it's fascinating what they say about how the summers have changed. It's not like the players go away during the summer, then reconvene in late July and say, okay, camp's here, so let's start it all again. No, they've been being coached over the summer. Sean, there's install. I mean, there's installation that goes on.
Basically those two practices, and we were over there for camp, summer football camps, and it was when those practices were going on, and the players all wear their jerseys.
Yeah, it's so. I guess the answer to your question would be yes. I think they'd be ready for a scrimmage if that's what Matt wants to do.
This thing with the two people have really gone at me on this, that Mike Riley did something similar, but it wasn't done like this.
Well, explain that to people.
So Mike Riley, during spring ball, at least 1 year, he split off in the same practice, and they had another field going with other players, and they divided the team up into two.
But everybody was out there simultaneously
at one time.
Right.
What Matt Rhule's doing is two separate 2-hour practices, where the same coaches coach and work a double shift.
Yeah.
So it's completely different, and it's in August.
Yeah. Riley didn't do that.
And I don't know why. I mean, people are really like mad at me. Like, no, Mike Riley didn't. No, like Michael Severe has lit me up on text, a couple posters on the board.
It's okay, Sean.
I don't get it. Like, it's like, look,
it's okay.
This is August. This is like the time when this counts. Like, they're practicing football to get ready for a game.
Yeah.
The spring is developmental, and the players came out as one team, and then they split off on the separate fields. They've done that on Nebraska for years.
Yeah. Okay.
People on the board, really, it's weird. Like, some of these guys have just been sword fighting me all day on this.
Yeah.
I sat in Chicago at breakfast this morning answering like 10 questions about trying to explain why this is different than what Mike Riley did with.
Yeah. I don't think Riley ever did a situation where he had 60 guys in a practice and then 60, in this case, it's 60 less experienced players or newcomers in another practice to get them reps.
You can't do it that way other than August anyway, because of the 20-hour rule.
Right.
This is the only time of the year you're not restricted to either the 20-hour or the 8-hour rule.
It's a good idea from the standpoint that Satterfield pointed out yesterday, that it gets, there's going to be freshmen at Nebraska that through 1 week of practice get about 100 reps. Whereas at other schools, there'll be entire camps where a freshman doesn't get 100 reps in the entire camp. Nebraska got their young guys got that in 4 or 5 days. So that's why they do it. Now, the thing about it is, like you saw the quote, maybe from, I think it was from Marcus Satterfield, where you do this for the long term. Okay, that's good. But you also got Minnesota on August 31st. So
it was just 3 days, though.
It's just 3 days. Yeah.
And maybe Rhule will slide in another day. Who knows? But I think it's a really good way to open up camp.
Yeah, and it's a good way to get guys reps, which it's sort of a nod to Tom Osborne. Rhule's mentioned that Osborne has told him, you can't. I know that it grated on Tom. I mean, really grated on Tom when he would come over to practice and see guys standing around. That conversation has been going on for quite some time, because Tom's practices, and I know people get tired of this.
Reps.
Yeah, I used to watch them. They had 3 or 4 stations going, and it was an incredible machine that was working, because you'd see just at Memorial Stadium 2 of the stations going, and it was rep after rep after rep. And when you're running the option like they were, Sean, as you know, it's timing, so timing oriented. You got to run it a lot. It's always funny to me when people say, hey, they should throw in some option. Well, if you throw in option come Saturday, you might run it and it'll look like you just threw it in, as opposed to having a well-timed good looking option system. But if you're commit to that, you have to run a lot of reps. That's what I think that's a large reason Tom did it.
Yeah. And it, having a roster that big sounds good in theory, but you got to use the players, right? And, and make it worth their while.
Yeah, you couldn't fit them all in Memorial Stadium. He would have 2 stations going, maybe 3, 2 for sure going to Memorial Stadium, and then another station or 2 going outside the stadium on the grass fields. So that's how, it was way different. But the overriding theme being from Tom, you can't have a bunch of guys standing around, which we've seen that a lot at Nebraska under multiple coaches. Too many players standing.
Well, and another thing in this first turning the page on week 1 is the facility and getting that done in the locker room and all those things.
It's huge.
And it's made considerable progress. We're going to pull up the feed here of the construction camera here, but you look how much work they've got. I mean, it's starting to look like a football facility.
It is. It's fascinating. We have to walk through there a lot. I would say that the construction workers, you see some stress. I mean, it's like they know there's a time. I mean, they got to get this thing rolling. I mean, this is not what we thought was going to be the case, right? That on August 4th, August 5th, whatever the hell it is, that would be not even close to being done. I mean, I was amazed the other day.
Here it is. Take a look at it. Look at that.
Yes, it's beautiful. I was amazed yesterday. They just took out the sidewalk in front of them on the north end of Memorial Stadium. You weren't there yesterday, but if you would have walked up, you would have seen they ripped that sidewalk out where you walk to the practice availability.
They rip that sidewalk out almost every year. Do you know why?
No.
Because they just salt the hell out of it. Anytime there's like, severe snow and ice.
Okay.
I'm guessing for liability. I mean, they just dump bags of salt on that and it just destroys that concrete. So that stadium concrete almost gets replaced, I would say, every year because of the amount of weathering it takes.
Well, and it's not, they don't open until mid-September at home, right? Am I wrong? So they got till September 16th. So it's not pressing.
That is one nice thing about the schedule is that, they're not home till week 3.
Right. September 16th.
And it gives, like Hausman and those guys can work on the weekend. I mean, they could be over there all weekend working, doing something. They are.
I imagine they are.
But yeah, that field, it's interesting to me that, I guess they're probably confined by the space they have, but that this is only a 50-yard piece of turf. Like what the thought is for this field turf here to be just a 50-yard field. Like, there probably wasn't any possible way to put 100 yards in there.
That's kind of surprising.
Like if there was a way to bring it out, but it's 100 yards, is a lot of space. So
yeah,
but they can still do a lot of situational things on that turf.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing the inside of that building.